All right.
Nice.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that sound. Perfect. Okay, so we are live. Excellent. So after all of that technical mumbo jumbo, we are now live with Hampton Liu of Hybrid Calisthenics. I'm looking forward to this because I'm sure you have a ton to share. So first of all, Hampton, please tell me who you are and what is Hybrid Calisthenics?
Well, thank you so much, Doctor. I am really happy to be here. Hampton is my name, and Hybrid Calisthenics is my fitness brand that I share largely on social media. It's just a way I want to spread my fitness manifesto and try to help people however I can. I never profess to be an expert in anything. I am always a student. And another part of that is, why didn't I just name the channel Hampton? You see a lot of people with fitness brands, and they just name it after themselves, and that's perfectly okay. The thing is, my ultimate goal actually doesn't really have anything to do with fitness. It really is about creating community. So I want to start right now, as we're building the foundation of something that will go on after I die. So if I name it Hampton, I don't want to create a cult of personality. This is harder than it sounds, as you may know, because it's like, if you want to create a community, you're the linchpin. Everyone's around you. But I want to create something that will last after I die. And without getting too much into it, hybrid means we borrow from different modalities. People say calisthenics borrows or steals from yoga, gymnastics. We have the bridge, we have the muscle up, we have all these things from strongman training. So we want to take the best of all worlds and use it to better ourselves. And calisthenics, and if you go, and we'll talk more about this in the interview, I'm not I'm not someone who hates weight training or hates kettlebells or hates isometrics. It's whatever you want. I chose calisthenics because it's what I use, and also it implies to me that we have the tools to better ourselves within ourselves. It's bodyweight training. We don't need someone to sell us $100 piece of equipment, $1,000 piece of equipment. These are useful, the useful things, but you don't need that to try to better yourself. So that's Hampton, and that's Hybrid Calisthenics.
Okay, excellent. So tell me now, how did you mentioned yoga, you mentioned conventional strongman training, conventional weightlifting. How or why did you get involved with calisthenics? And so tell us a little bit about your calisthenics journey.
Okay, so I've always really been into fitness, and just my father was into martial arts. I grew up a lot of like kung fu and martial arts enthusiasts. So there were some karate people, taekwondo people, wrestling people, and just by nature of most of these martial arts, they center heavily on calisthenics and bodyweight training. Even in karate, lots of push-ups, lots of sit-ups, focuses on endurance and strength and joint strength. So I've always been really into that. But I didn't really have a structure until I was about 17. At the time, I didn't have a whole lot of fitness knowledge. I just knew what I learned at school, and honestly, a lot of it was what I saw on TV shows. The kids, they see, I say some people see Rocky, the boxer, and they say, well, I want to train like him. So all they know is from Rocky movies, which may or may not be accurate. Some people learn from anime, whatever their inspiration is. I was really influenced by bodyweight training. At age 17, I started doing 100 push-ups, 25 push-ups every time there was a commercial on TV. So I would do about 100 a day, and I would build up. And I got to the point where I was doing about 6 sets of 82 every day. So that was almost 500 push-ups a day. And I thought that was okay, but I really wanted to explore other parts. I was always worried about imbalance. I didn't want to only have pushing strength. Again, this is me in my late teens. I didn't know a whole lot about fitness. I started reading a calisthenics book that was really popular amongst my friends called Convict Conditioning. And this was written by a man who, Paul Wade, he was a big influence on me, and he wrote a lot about how he went to prison and he wanted to build himself up. He was 6'1", and he said he was 140 pounds soaking wet, and he didn't want to be bullied in there. And by the way, if this is the first time you're hearing of this, don't worry. He does not glorify being a convict. He does not tell you to break the law. He he tells you, please
don't do it.
Don't go there. Yeah, he warns me, and I've emailed with him. I have tremendous respect for him, and I started doing his routine, and that's really what got me started on expanding calisthenics, because it was interesting. In the book, it's really written more, I would say, definitely male-centered. Even he admits it's male-centered. It's for guys. He talks about muscle and strength and getting girls, and that's cool. But what really intrigued me was how you started from what's a relatively low level, like wall push-ups, relatively low level, wall pull-ups, these things like almost comically easy to some people, and they build up to something. If you really look at what he's talking about on the final steps, those are ridiculously hard. The one-arm handstand push-up, the way he's describing it has not been done on video. The different versions of it have been done. So I was like, well, almost anyone can build from somewhere and build up. So it's interesting that I have a relatively large following of like younger kids, young girls, and also some older moms, taken from this manifesto that was originally learned from a convict who was teaching other young men. It's because another thing that really rang out to me was his workout schedule, which a lot of people didn't look at. They saw the exercises and that was that. Look, if you read the entire book back to front, I'm a weirdo, I read entire books. He talks about his workout schedule, and I was like, it's once a week? And I was like, I read back and I was like, you know, I was scrolling through the book, I was like, well, what's going on? And because I was so used to doing it every day, I'm like, well, if I want to be strong, why don't I do it every day? And he really drilled into me the concept of rest. We get stronger when we rest. When we're exercising, it's great, but we're just breaking down the body in a systematic way so it can grow back stronger. And with this really came the long-term part of what I think is like, it's almost like you deposit $5 a week, okay? And everyone's like, well, I want to deposit $500 right now. And then they burn out after a little while, but you're doing that every week and it grows and it grows. So that's the summary of why I'm into calisthenics as much as I am.
Okay, so if we expand on that a little bit more, so tell me, what are your personal goals? Like I know that you have people that follow you, and there's a lot of things that you are a proponent of. But if we're talking just about Hampton Liu for a second, what are your personal goals with calisthenics training?
With calisthenics training, this is interesting because it differs wildly from if someone asks me, what are your goals, period, or question mark. What, there's two layers to that even then. I have a complex mind. One side is I just want to live a happy, free life. You know, like I have some friends, some older friends who are in their 60s and 70s, and they look like they're in their 40s. They're moving around, and these are people who have been in severe accidents. You know, someone like at one point had almost every bone in his body broken from our car accident, and because of the way he lives and the way he exercises, he's youthful. He can move around a lot better than other people his age. So another part is me. Like I just want to build health and wellness. Another part, and this is probably like not older Hampton speaking, this is the younger Hampton in his mid-20s. You know, I really want to do some of these calisthenics moves that other people haven't done before. The one-arm handstand push-up has been a goal of mine for several years now, and I have new ways that I'm experimenting with it. And if you really want to hear me gushing or like just babble, you can ask me about what I'm doing there. And like different things that people explore. If you ask another calisthenics person, they will talk about front levers and back levers and stuff. And that stuff is really cool. My goals are a little bit different in the sense that they're not necessarily about building muscle, and a lot of these hard movements I can get to without building a tremendous amount of muscle, because it's really the weak point, and you know this, is the joints in these movements. It's like doing a one-arm push-up, you know, which a lot of people like to do, then that's cool. Just from the side, all you do is put your feet together and keep your body straight. All you do is move your hand directly underneath your sternum and go like this. It increases the demand on your elbow so much more. That has not been done on video yet. That's something I want to do, but that's something that's interesting to me. And as far as spreading calisthenics, I know most people don't care about that. Most people aren't going to care about calisthenics as much as I do, and it would be foolish of me to expect them to do that. Now, I talk about it, and it gets some people going, and they're like, well, I want to try it. But a lot of people just want to be healthy and well, and I always keep that in mind when I'm talking with other people.
Well, it's interesting, you know, you talk about these things that people haven't done or that haven't been on TV or haven't been seen on video before. I talked to Simon Atta, Simonster, and he had said a similar thing. Now, he's all about the big power moves, but it was the same kind of thing. He was like, you know, there's these things that people just like they said it couldn't be done. Nobody could do it. And I wanted to do those things. So I think that is an amazing and very interesting goal. But the other part of what you said, which I think is very important for all the people who are listening, whether they are just athletes, patients, whatever, is you want to be able to move and do things for your entire life and just be able to have an ease of movement, right? And just, you know, not necessarily be tied to your age, right? Whatever that may be. So you mentioned this a little bit before, but let's come back to that. Is your fitness training strictly only calisthenics, or do you employ other modalities of fitness training as well?
I could make it entirely calisthenics, and this is part. I generally vibe with the calisthenics community more so than like the CrossFit community or anything. I have nothing against them. It's we share more in common. One thing I really don't vibe with, and I'm not talking, I violently disagree, it's something I disagree with, is a lot of people who are into calisthenics, they want to spread calisthenics purity. Like, we only do calisthenics, every other modality is flawed, and here are all the reasons why. And some of them, like, they write like very thorough articles on why that is, and that's cool, but it's not me. It's not me. I employ some strongman training. Like, we rip cards, deck of cards and phone books to train grip strength. Some people use it as a way to not show off, but to demonstrate strength and deliver a message, which is the idea behind old-time strongman shows. But I just do it for grip strength. I really like isometrics, which you can, because it's bodyweight training, the way I do it, and some of the ways I do it, it is a close cousin to calisthenics, I would say. You know, like if you think wall sits, it's calisthenics, but it's also isometrics. My two biggest ones are definitely calisthenics and isometrics. And not all parts of my isometrics training are calisthenics. I built what's basically an isometric barbell. It's hooked up to a spring. You may have seen it. The Dragon Door wants to promote their version, yes, which is where I got my idea, and it's $500, and it's great. It's great. But I built my own wall, you know, while I'm waiting for that, and that's something that I expect to see great results from. So calisthenics and isometrics are definitely the two things I really want to push for myself.
I like the fact that you're a proponent of isometrics, because, you know, people are always thinking that they have to do these big movements, they have to do explosive movements or whatever to generate strength and generate power, but they don't, and they neglect the benefit of isometrics. And I think for a lot of people, especially people who are starting out, isometrics are very valuable. But even for people who are advanced, isometrics allow you to explore new ranges that you may not have mastered before, and allows you to apply strength in different positions. And I think the benefits of isometrics are great. I told you I came from my clinic, and you know, I saw a number of patients today, and for quite a few of them, we talked about isometric holds, bent leg holds, things like that to increase quadricep recruitment and to build strength in those positions before they move on to either isotonic or eccentric loading of those muscles. So yeah, I think isometric exercises are quite important as well. So let's talk a little bit about your experience. So you know, your calisthenic journey has been one of sort of self-discovery, but outside of your own personal fitness experience, I don't know what it is that you do outside of this. Do you have any kind of background in physical education, or is this all just kind of self-taught and what you've learned from reading?
So just to make it clear, all this is self-taught. Okay. All this is self-taught, and I don't profess to be an expert in all these things. I have tremendous respect for these people. I was trained as an EMT. Okay. I was trained as an EMT, and what I do, to answer the first part of the question, was I did web design and print design. Okay. There's a long version of that story to where I was basically at home. I was doing home health care for my mom, and that required 24/7 care, but I still needed to make a living.
Yes.
It's done, and like she had medical expenses, so I had to do something that I could work from home. So it was web design and print design largely, and I was very blessed that I could do relatively well with that. And I started branching to fitness content, and hopefully I can branch into that full time. But I was trained, so my degree was in business, international business with a focus in marketing. Mm-hmm. There are times when I've considered, I was like, well, let's say I do this for the rest of my life. I do hybrid calisthenics, and we expand it, and we can help people, we do different things. Should I go and get a certificate for it? And generally, it always comes down to this. I have tremendous respect for people who are good physical therapists, certified personal trainers, strength coaches. But that's not necessarily what I want to do, if that makes sense. Or the dietitian. It's not, I mean, you know as well as I do, like, if I were to go to medical school, I could certainly use that knowledge and put it into my fitness content, and that'd be great, and people could benefit. But it'd be, in my opinion, it'd be unusual for me to show up because I couldn't lie. I couldn't show up at medical school and be like, yeah, I have no interest in being a doctor. I have a YouTube channel, and this is just to help that. I feel like even if I had brilliant grades, a lot of them would be like, yeah, we're not gonna, like, they want someone who's into it. Same with physical therapy. It's the same with all these things. And unfortunately, as far as I know now, there are some things. I'm a big proponent of self-teaching.
Yes.
I'm a big proponent of education. I like education, not always the business in which it's sold. That's a separate thing. But there are some things that I feel like I cannot learn as well, by myself. Like, for example, anatomy is something I bring up. I don't think I will ever be like what I would consider an expert in anatomy, because if you, like, for me, it's so, if you show me like this thing and you're like, Hampton, is this the medial head of a triceps or is it a chicken tender? I have to be able to know. And like things like messing with cadavers aren't something that I can do. I can't just go to Walmart and buy a cadaver and be like, well, I want to explore. So I always keep that in mind, that there are some parts of knowledge that would have to be taught, and maybe the education landscape will change to the point where I can pursue certain degrees, only to supplement my fitness content and my fitness brand. But that's generally the summary of how I would answer your question.
Okay, well, it's interesting. One of the other people that I talked to, his name is Miguel Santana, and on Instagram he's Miguel Hand Balance, and so he is a professional hand balancer. And if you look at the positions that he can put himself into and what he does, it is beautiful, and it shows an absolute mastery of his body, pardon me. And Miguel is self-taught. So, I have a number of degrees and I went to school for a long time, but I have recognized that there are lots of people who are very intelligent, very smart, very capable, who don't necessarily have those degrees. And if you look to some of the most successful people in the world, Elon Musk, he has an undergraduate degree, but he dropped out of his PhD, and he is now tied to be the second wealthiest person in the world. So,
right.
Yes, it's nice to have the degrees, but they do not mean everything. And so there's lots of people who have lots of education that is not formalized, that, is equally and perfectly valid. So let me ask you about a little bit about your calisthenics focus. You mentioned how there's lots of different types of calisthenics, and I can think of lots of different calisthenics influencers on Instagram and YouTube, and you think about the brand of calisthenics that they promote. In your particular case, what I've noticed, and one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, is because you seem to focus on calisthenics as it pertains to wellness rather than performance. And it's not to say that there's not performance in there as well, because some of the goals that you have for yourself are definitely performance-based. But you seem to focus on calisthenics as it pertains to wellness. So is this by intention? And if so, why?
Well, first of all, I just want to address really quick, because you were very kind to people who don't have formal degrees. And I never expected I'd be doing this. And I want to acknowledge that while you say that, certainly your accomplishments are very impressive in themselves. It's like just being an orthopedic surgeon is very impressive, and I wanted to recognize that. So major respect to you. Now, as far as the question goes, it is by intent now. It originally wasn't. I did not sit down. Like, I have a lot of things that are idiosyncrasies or just native to me, like, hello, my friends, have a beautiful day. I never sat down. I never sat down and said that I want to be a wholesome fitness guy. I just started talking. Like, people called me that, and I may have leaned into some of it because I know it connects more with other people, but I did not sit down and do that. And I'm like, as far as wellness goes, it's just how I think of it. So it is by intent now. It originally was not by intent. And the reasoning for that, I feel like I can summarize very easily because I've mentioned this before, is not everyone is going to be as interested in calisthenics as I am. Okay, if my life's journey was to help everyone do a one-arm push-up, that's not something I really want to buy. Some people, they just want to connect with fitness. A lot of people, they don't care about calisthenics, and that's perfectly okay. They just want to be able to move. Some of them are in pain, and just doing wall push-ups, or like I tell them, if you can't do wall push-ups, bench press the air, just start moving, and we get them excited about wellness and being happy. Being happy, and I can expand more upon this. I don't mean like vapid happiness, to where you are just deliriously happy. I mean happy with yourself, excited to wake up. That is a much more wholesome, holistic, and intuitive goal, in my opinion, than helping everyone do one-arm push-ups, one-arm pull-ups. And almost everyone, just branch off a little bit, almost everyone could do that with the proper training. But not everyone wants that, and I absolutely have to respect that and acknowledge that. So I try to talk with the audience. My stuff is never about me, unless someone specifically requests, like, an About Me section. It's always about serving and helping other people, and they connect more with the wellness stuff, so I speak more to the wellness stuff. Okay,
so as part of that wellness focus, one of the things that you promote is a cultivation of long-term fitness, and you have the shirt on there
right.
with that. And I think, you know, when I think about what I tell patients about movement and about fitness and wellness, I kind of say the same thing, but I think I say the same thing. So I want you to explain to me, what do you mean by cultivation of long-term fitness, and why do you promote this philosophy?
First of all, there's a guy in the comment section that's trying to get our attention. Sir, I hope your toe is okay and you get it taken care of. But beyond cultivating long-term fitness, this is something I really enjoy. So thank you for asking me about that. There's always a short answer and a long answer. I'm going to give a medium answer. Okay. The idea is that a lot of people, they try to make up for lost time, okay, and they end up hurting themselves. Like, we are all familiar with this at some point in our lives. The idea where you haven't been doing something, whether it's fitness or something else. You know, like a lot of people with fitness, they have been sedentary for a while. They haven't been eating right in their own minds. They watch a segment on TV or they hear from their friends and they think, it's time for me to get fit. Or they step on a scale and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I gained this much weight. So they really want to get fit over that weekend, and they really push themselves. They go 100%, you know, or like they push themselves beyond what their safe limits are because they want to make up for lost time. Because they haven't been working out, in their opinion, for the past 20 years, they want to make it up over a weekend. And when they do this, they often, almost always, they burn out. I think they burn out. They wake up really sore or pain. Sometimes, hopefully not, but sometimes semi-permanent injuries from that one weekend when they push themselves too hard, or they try to do something like a box jump they weren't ready for, and they just fall over and they break a bone. I don't want that. Again, life is longer than we think. So we want to cultivate this for the long term, and that means like what I was talking about at the beginning. You start with something, and you can do. And you build up. You know, you start with like once, maybe twice a week, and you build up. Whatever keeps you motivated, but eventually really once or twice a week for a specific movement or a certain muscle group, depending on your goals, is often great for just overall fitness. So cultivate long-term fitness doesn't mean we don't want to think short-term. I don't want to think, you know, diet's another thing, but I don't want to think crash dieting to where you have this entire week where you don't eat so you can look good for your friend's wedding. Or you can do this. No, we're in this for the long term. We want to cultivate long-term fitness. I want you guys to be happy, well, and mobile for the rest of your lives. If I can control that, it's absolutely what I want to do. I want long term. I don't. This is why I don't. I can think about it this way. I can make a lot of money. I can make lots of money selling 30-day fitness routines.
Yep.
But I don't want that. You know, I give you a free fitness routine that can hopefully work for you for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I like what you said there about life is longer than we think, right? And so to be able to do something that is sustainable so that you don't have the drop off, it's not about making this quick, sudden change. It's about implementing these techniques, stuff that become part of your life. They become part of your identity, part of your being, and then you can maintain them over the long term. So with that in mind, let me ask you, how then does calisthenics in particular, how do you feel the calisthenics training prepares you for day-to-day life?
Well, this is my opinion, and this is probably, it's not, I would not say it's super controversial, but because of the way I'm going to phrase it, but it's probably the most controversial thing I'll say, where I think calisthenics, not by definition, but by the nature of the people who practice it and just the manifesto behind it, it focuses on functional natural movement, like push-ups. We're just pushing ourselves up. Whereas weight training, I am not against weight training. Like bolded, italics, underlined. I'm not against weight training, okay, or whatever it is, especially if something you like. But a lot of times with weight training, people will focus more on one, the aesthetics of it. Okay, they only want to get that pump, and that's a fine goal. If that's what gets you up, and if that's what you like, is to get buff, you know, and like have guys want to be you and have girls want you, you know, if you're a guy, that's cool, that's great. But sometimes that will lead to injury. And it happens with calisthenics too. I've noticed it happens more with weight training, where people are lifting more than they really should for ego. You know, I don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings, but it is for ego. Or they're just doing like this small exercise through the small, tiny range of motion, not doing joint-specific training. They're not trying to do that, but they just want to lift, and their form is not the best, and they hurt themselves. I am generally against that mentality. Doesn't mean I love you any less. I don't like that. Another part is weight training. Again, not by definition, but it's like how it is. We tend to focus on certain movements that, in my opinion, are not necessarily natural. And that's why a lot of people hurt themselves from doing shoulder presses in a certain way, where they really have the shoulders in a position where they can injure themselves. Again, some of this is controversial. A lot of people say they don't want to do, like, it's not unsafe if you do it correctly. That's fine. That's fine, but I've noticed a lot of people with weight training, they do injure themselves, and we could say that's because a lot of people don't know proper technique, and certainly there are great, tremendous teachers, both in real life and online, that can teach you that proper technique, but a lot of people do injure themselves. In my opinion, generally less so with calisthenics, and it makes sense, because if we fail, you know, a push-up, we land on our face, which is not fun, but it's a lot healthier than dropping 300 pounds on your neck.
Yes. So I agree completely, and the analogy, one of the analogies I like to use with people is when I talk to them about NFL Combine. So I was a competitive football coach. I was a competitive football player, and then I was a coach for many years. And I'm always amazed when I watch the NFL Combine. And one of the tests, it's also in the CFL Combine as well, so I'm in Canada,
Okay.
and it's the bench press test, and it's a indicator of upper body strength, and it's all well and good, okay? So these guys are all strong, and the bench press is an indicator of that. However, it's not exactly a functional exercise, because there is no time when you are on the football field when a defender is going to allow you just to press your arms out like this in a controlled fashion. Never, because either he's trying to swim, rip, whatever, he is trying to do something to get around you, and he is definitely not standing still. So it's interesting that they have it as a strength indicator, but it has no applicability to real life. And so I think, and I agree, that one of the things that made me become interested in functional movement and calisthenics training is that the movements are based around natural body movements. And that's one of the reasons why I like to use it with our clients or with my patients post-operatively, because this is how you move day to day. So all we're doing is changing the length of the lever, we're applying a little bit of resistance or whatever. But these are movements, pushing movements, pulling movements, squatting movements, standing movements. These are all things that you do day to day. And so I think it is much more applicable, and it should be a tool that people, much more people should apply that. It should be much more widely practiced, in my opinion.
Right. And just to add to that really quick, this is one of the things I like about advanced calisthenics, the way I do them. Because some people, they just add weight to their pull-ups, add weight to their dips. And that's fine. But I find that, in my opinion, things like the bench press, the squat, you are finding the optimum angle. It represents good technique where you're not hurting yourselves and you can lift as much as you can. Oftentimes, people will say that they didn't necessarily get stronger. They became better bench pressers. They became better squatters because they find that window of strength, that pathway of strength, and they can lift a lot. And that's great. But advanced calisthenics, just like I said, the one-arm push-up with your hand in a disadvantageous position trains you at disadvantageous positions, which you often are in sports and in real life. This is what I like about it, is because oftentimes when we're on the football field, we're competing, we don't have that optimum position. We don't have that optimum position. We have disadvantageous positions, and this trains you in ways to where you wouldn't naturally be strong. I will add as a caveat to anyone that's listening, whenever you're doing that, making it hard on yourself, you want to respect your natural biomechanics. I don't want to misuse any words. Okay, some things are hard on you, like if you just take your hand and you just kind of rip it to the side, or you take your elbow and you rip it to the side, those things are hard on your joints, not necessarily good for you. And I'll say they aren't good for you, okay? You want to strain yourself under your natural biomechanics. Don't do anything weird, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I think that it's certainly true that it allows us to see these positions that, as you say, when you are doing something active or vigorous, you are not necessarily always in an optimal position. And it's, you're so right in that when we do these weight training exercises, when we use an apparatus, we're talking about, we want to train in a manner that's safe, and we want to find that optimal path, right? So that we can produce as much power or strength as is possible. But as I mentioned with football players, when you're out in the real world, that doesn't necessarily happen. And if you fall, the ground doesn't say to you, well, what angle did you work on your bench press so that I can make sure that you put your hands out at that angle to save yourself from smashing your face on the ground. It doesn't ask you that. The black ice does not ask you, what angle were you squatting at or were you lunging at so I can make sure that when you slip, you go into that angle. It doesn't ask you that. Things just happen randomly, and we may be in positions that we didn't necessarily train where we're using apparatus. And so the thing about functional training is that it usually involves some sort of movement, and you are able to train what I would call mobility. And so for me, my definition of mobility is not just flexibility, but it is strength throughout the range of motion. Because there are lots of people who are strong, and there are lots of people who are flexible. But if you ask them to demonstrate strength at a disadvantageous part of their range of motion, they go to shit. So I think it's important for us to work on all those ranges. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a major part of our training, but I do want to train people in such a way that when they find something unusual happening, and they are falling or off balance, that their body says, been there, done that, have the t-shirt, watch me fly, instead of going, oh crap, what do I do now? Right? So yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's important. Let me ask you, and I think I know one because you mentioned them already. Who are your top 3 fitness training, or calisthenics role models or mentors?
Okay, so this is actually one, because I can answer most questions off the top of my head. This one, when you sent me the list before this interview, I read and I thought about, okay, because if you look at other previous interviews of mine, I'm very bad at naming, like, the top one, because I don't like choosing, but then they say, well, give me the top 10. I'm like, so I'm glad I thought about this. And first of all, I want to say that if you are watching this and you have a YouTube channel that you're sure that I know, I absolutely mean no disrespect for you. Like, chances are I love your stuff. You know, like we think of like Chris Heria from Calisthenics, Simon Monster. Like, these are amazingly strong people. Of course, everyone knows Athlean-X. I respect all of these people, but I thought about it, and I don't necessarily model my content or my calisthenics after them. Generally, my models for fitness and spreading the fitness brand, I would say, yes, number one, some people don't think he's a real person, he's a group of people, whatever. The writings of this man known as Paul Wade have really influenced me. Not just the way he not exercises, but if you actually read the stuff and you don't just look at the pictures, he is a motivational writer. He brings people up. You know, you wouldn't necessarily expect this from the stereotypical ex-con, but he brings people up. And this is why I'm a big fan of his writings. And it really well-sourced. He sources everything, and I learn a lot of stuff from him. The second, and these are all going to be unconventional answers, the second is really what people want. So the second is not a person, but it's an embodiment of what I noticed from humankind. Is what they need, okay? Because how I'm going to model my calisthenics, how I model what I spread, is going to be about what people need, even in my own training for myself. Because I want to experiment with what other people need. If they're like, I suffer from hip pain a lot, I'm going to experiment with a lot of my training around training your hips in a safe way. So the second is an amalgamation, the collective of humankind and people that I notice, because my goal really is to build community and help people. And third is Jesus. You may not, you know, we can get into my, I can talk for an hour about my views on religion and everything. I'm a non-denominational Christian, and I believe, and there's people who are not Christians who say they are not Christians, but they jive with the teachings of Jesus. Their quote, not mine. And from what I know, and the way he spread things and how he helps people and how he recommends building yourself and leading by example is something that I would be lying if I did not say was a big influence on me. Okay,
excellent, excellent. So tell me then, now that we know who are your mentors, when you think about what you are doing, okay, and if you're modeling yourself after these people or these ideas, first, so this is a two-part question. So number one, what population of people or clients do you think that calisthenics, and in particular what you do is in calisthenics, is appropriate for? And then the second question, which is, you know, sort of related to the first, is who is the ideal target for your content?
First, did I lose you on? No, I didn't lose you on Zoom. It just changed. So you're asking who, the way I teach calisthenics, who it can benefit the most, in my opinion, and who the ideal person is?
Yes.
Okay. This is interesting because I would say this is almost always changing because I make content almost every day. I try to hit segments. There is a saying in the business world, and I would not consider calisthenics to be necessarily a business, that you will go broke trying to boil the ocean. You want to find your niche and serve them. And that's absolutely what I'm trying to do, but I find all the time that it's expanding, and I don't want to leave anyone behind. Anyone who is interested in cultivating long-term fitness, if they want to be happy and healthy and mobile, I will make content that serves you. I do not pretend, and I thank the heavens all the time that I am not the only fitness person on earth. That would be a tremendous responsibility if I was the only person you could follow. Take what you need from me. So the ideal person would be just be someone who right now is struggling with their fitness and wants to be happier and healthier. I do make content for people who are already very fit and want to take it to that extra level. When I was starting off, I thought that would be the selling point. Because, you know, like telling someone to do a push-up, I thought that was relatively easy. Building to like very advanced push-ups, very advanced calisthenics movements. I thought that would be what would set me apart. Not that I think like I'm extraordinary in any way, but definitely not strength and muscle size or anything. But it really was the appeal of bringing people who, right now, people who struggle with their fitness and want to get introduced to it in a way where people aren't yelling at them and they don't feel judged. And if that's what you do, that's fine. Some people, they really jive with someone yelling like, yelling at them and swearing at them and telling them to get on their knees, and if that's what motivates you, that's great. But I found that just the natural way that I am, it's people who want kind of a helping hand with their fitness. And I've noticed I can help more people this way if I open myself up to them. And there's already people, if that's what you like, people who yell at you.
Well, and it's interesting, you know, as I scrolled through your videos, and just, you know, you had mentioned this before, even just from your introduction to people, right? Like right away, that's people. It's like, oh my God, like this is so welcoming, right? Like they feel at ease, which I think is, and you said, you know, it wasn't an intentional part. That's just the way you are, but it's you do it consistently, and I think it's part of your brand, and I think that that's amazing, right? Because it is very welcoming. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, as an ex-football player, as an ex-football coach, and as a military reservist, I was very much into the in your face, let's go, and I get that. Right. But as an orthopedic surgeon with patients who, some of whom are elderly, whatnot, some of who have had, you know, terrible injuries, I recognize that doesn't work with everybody. And for some people, you know, you really need to be much more open and receptive, and just, you know, you have to be more empathic with those people. And so I think that that's something that you definitely have nailed down. So tell me now, if this is going to be hard, but let's see what you got. Okay. So if you were to boil down what you teach and promote about calisthenics, okay, what are your top 3 principles for anyone who is looking to start training in calisthenics?
For anyone that is looking to start training in calisthenics, so first of all, I want to touch on something very important that you said, where you're trying to, where your experiences in football and in the military are different than how you teach things as an orthopedic surgeon and helping people rehab themselves. I'm always trying to make things simpler, and I don't want to get too much into a sob story, but really, my mother passed away this year, and I always think that, no, if someone yelled at her to exercise, she just wouldn't do it. But I always feel like if I had a way to introduce her to a fun way to exercise and be healthier, she would have lived longer. Okay, it's too late for my mom, unfortunately. I love her. You know, I hope and pray she's in a better place, but I want to help everyone else's mother. This is why it's so important to me to open myself up to other people. And again, if you want to get yelled at, I am not against you. I'm not making fun of you at all. That's just not what I'm doing here. The top 3 things for people getting into calisthenics is, number 1, I really want to emphasize that this isn't what people would expect, but you deserve to be happy now. You're not going to be happier when you lose weight. Whatever your goals are for calisthenics, or after you can do a one-arm handstand push-up, or after you're thinner or more muscular, you need to recognize that you deserve happiness the way you are, and that does not preclude improving yourself. You can improve yourself and push yourself a lot while still loving yourself, but you don't want to base your motivation on shame, because that is not something that is sustainable as far as I've seen. The second is to just start with something you can do and work your way up. Keep everything progressive. Don't try for something hard and feel, again, this is like, these are all connected. You don't want to feel shame that you can't do what you consider like a push-up. You're like, oh no, I have to do push-ups on my knees. These are called girl push-ups. I don't call them girl push-ups, okay? I don't, like, there are really strong people who injured themselves and had to build the way up. These people are stronger than I am, and they didn't even need push-ups, okay? So don't feel any shame. Start with something you can do so you don't injure yourself. And third is just recognize that it takes time. Again, we want things fast, but life is long. We want things fast and life is long. Everyone wants to think they want to train and look good and be rich and just be living their best life in their mid-20s or mid-30s or even mid-40s. Okay, but you are going to have to be dealing with your body, your mindset, and your life, and whatever relationships you create. And this, I know this is kind of hypocritical coming from a 26-year-old, but like this, I really believe in this. You're going to be living, because I'm planning to live into my 70s at least,
Yes.
or 80s,
Mm-hmm.
and you take care of yourself even longer. So you want to make sure that things take time, and it is never too late. If you're watching this and you're 80, you can make yourself better, because the process is the prize. Your destination is actually the process.
Yes.
You know, it's a paradox.
Yes.
You want to enjoy what you're doing to get there. Don't just tell yourself that you're happy after you get there.
I'm writing what you just said down. Process is the prize. I love that. And people, it's so true that you need to be happy today, right? You need to be happy now. You deserve to be happy now. And yes, you can have goals and you can work to bigger things, but you deserve to be happy now, and you should be happy with the journey. And you're right. The process is indeed the prize, right? So that's huge. And I love those. I wrote all three down because
Thank you.
I'm going to be stealing those. I love those
Please do.
principles. Now, let's switch gears now. So that's somebody who's starting, okay? But you have some very, very ambitious goals for yourself in calisthenics with some of the movements that you want to do. And,
Right.
you know, somebody who doesn't necessarily understand biomechanics wouldn't necessarily appreciate how difficult what you want to do is compared to other things. So with those goals that you have in mind, what are your top 3 principles for somebody who is trained in calisthenics and they are now looking to, like you, maximize their potential? They want to do some of these more difficult moves. What would you tell that person?
Okay, first of all, may I ask, how much time do we have left? Because I know we are limited.
I think we got about 12 minutes.
Oh, cool. So, okay, I'll keep that in mind. First of all, I would say decide on your path, because after you master what I consider just like the foundation, which is push-ups, squats, pull-ups, dips, things like that, we have the option of putting ourselves in disadvantageous positions and really, in my opinion, training our smaller muscles, our weak links, and our joints, you know, by building up, like, big example is you can either work up to the one-arm pull-up, or you can stick with pull-ups and just do weighted pull-ups. And these are 2 different paths. Of course, they're related in that they're both pulling strength. But if you can, people who can do a tremendous amount of weighted pull-ups can't necessarily do a one-arm pull-up. You're training different muscles. So keep that in mind. You can mix them, but try to have an idea of what you want to do, and it's experiment. Another thing is, if you're pursuing, these aren't listed in order of importance, but if you're pursuing advanced exercise, but especially advanced calisthenics, I would definitely experiment with isometrics. Not isometrics where you are pushing as hard as you can. There's different, people that like pin isometrics, overcoming isometrics, yielding isometrics. Look in something where you can push as hard as you can with some give. This is why I have a spring on my isometrics device, because of course you're familiar with the force-velocity relationship, and I don't want to misquote anything, because a lot of the stuff is misunderstood. But if you are exerting yourself at maximum force, you have to stop. Okay, our speed slows down as we increase in our, for lack of a better term, exertion. I know that's the wrong term. So definitely experiment with isometrics in that sense. That's one of the ways that I hope to get to the one-arm handstand push-up, the one-arm push-up, and the way I'm doing is with isometrics. Another thing is, I'm gonna sneak in another one, is recognize that it does take time. Don't, like all these things I'm getting to, I am like a big part of the goal is not having joint pain when I do them. Okay, I might be able to take a drug right now and do a one-arm handstand push-up, and it's like it'll be in pain for the next 6 months. You know, there are drugs out there that have that. I don't want that. Okay, that's just for my ego. That's for myself. Okay, you need to love yourself. Your body serves you. You have to serve it. So recognize that it takes time, and spend a lot of time focusing on what your weak links might be, because like some people, like I am relatively lighter, and I went past the regular pull-up, which is not a big deal for me, and I went towards the the one-arm pull-up. I think because I was lighter, when I started doing pull-ups, my lats were not as trained. Like the distribution of force across my muscles was different than had I put on like a 50-pound weight vest and started doing pull-ups. And when I went there and I started doing some pull-ups that were not a whole lot in weighted pull-ups, like 50 pounds, 40 pounds is not a tremendous amount compared to what some people can pull. It improved my performance across different exercises. Like I've been training towards a one-arm pull-up, and just doing weighted pull-ups had a substantial effect in that. So always keep in mind, always be thinking about what your weak links may be, because sometimes you may have an exercise that changes your other exercises for the better radically. And don't get discouraged because you may have not found the right exercise yet. I struggled with a human flag. I was like, this is weird. I can do all this other stuff that other people who can do human flags can do, but I struggled with just getting in position. And all it took was going to a swing set and finding a pole that was a little slanted and doing it from there. Okay, sometimes it's just about the right exercise and it clicks with our body. It's like, this is what you needed. And then you just make a tremendous amount of improvement.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think those are all great points. And the one thing, you mentioned it earlier, you touched upon it a little bit there, and I just want to bring it up again because I think this is so important. When you look at the metabolism of bone and the metabolism of muscle, it is orders of magnitude more fast than the metabolism of connective tissue, right? And so there is this thing about joint prep where there are people that are hella strong and they could force themselves into, like, for example, an iron cross. They could force themselves into it, right? But an iron cross puts a tremendous amount of stress on the ligaments around your shoulder capsule, and in particular, your elbow, right? And so you might be strong enough to do that movement, but your joints have nowhere near the capacity to do that. And because the metabolism of that tissue is so slow when compared to muscle or bone, it takes such a long time to condition that tissue to be able to resist what it is that you're trying to do. So I think that it takes time is important. And that really reflects to something else that you said at the beginning. This is like, listen, man, I'm like any other guy. I want to be bigger, faster, stronger. I want to be jacked. I want to look good when I'm in a bathing suit, and I want to walk down the beach and have the ladies go, oh yeah, that dude looks like he's in shape. I want that. Yes. But we have to take our ego, man. Like this, to work out and have functional fitness and to train this way, it's like taking a kick in the nuts, man. You have to take your ego completely out of it. And like you said, I got to do push-ups on my hands and my knees. No, those are girl push-ups. No, you have to say, hey, I'm going to do these push-ups because it's a shorter lever. And I'm going to work my way up to being able to do a one-handed push-up. And it's a matter of progression, right? So I think that is so true, and I think that is so valuable. Thank you for those. So now, our last two questions here this is my main one here.
Okay.
Hampton. So you get to do whatever you want. This is your show here. So tell me, what are your 3 favorite calisthenic exercises? You're not doing this for the people. You're doing this for Hampton right now. Okay. What is it that you love to do? Your favorite 3 and why?
My favorite 3. Okay, again, I admit I'm bad with like organizing everything to lists because I want to choose everything. There's always like sub things to that. I really thrive on handstand push-ups. It's not. I never thought of it as an impressive thing. I don't like doing these things in public necessarily because I don't want people to stop and say, "Wow, that's really cool." I just like it. It feels good. I like doing this. I like pull-ups and I like bridges. Now, these are not necessarily the 3 exercises I recommend to everyone in the world. These are just things that I really thrive on. I do a lot of squats. I always thought I would get to the point where I would love squats, but no, they kind of suck. They kind of suck.
Squats always suck, man.
Well, the interesting thing is when I can't do like however many handstand push-ups I'm doing, and I can't do like it just comes to a point where it's like, nope, I'm not gonna be able to do another one. I hop down, and like that ends it. With squats, it's like I can always have another one in, and then it's just like my heart's pounding, I'm breathing heavy. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like okay, I'm nowhere near failure yet, so I got to push through. So that somehow just makes it worse. My favorite exercise that I'm going to say right now is walking, not necessarily for health, but because of what it does. Almost like the reason people know me, the reason I do things is a lot of my ideas come from having a cup of coffee every other day and going for a walk. That's when I think of things. Okay. So that's one of my favorite exercises, if not my favorite exercise, is just walking. Not necessarily for health, but for my mind.
Excellent. Well, listen, man, your mind is part of it, right? It's not just, the whole package is not just physical, right? There is a mental, psychological aspect, which then relates to the physical and helps the physical component, but we oftentimes neglect the psychological component when we are talking about wellness. And wellness is a holistic term and a holistic concept. So that's very true.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One last question before we sign off. And you talked a little bit about this, but why calisthenics as opposed, you mentioned some of these other things. Why calisthenics rather than yoga, conventional fitness, conventional resistance training? Why?
Okay. For me, calisthenics is because it's something that I like. Just because of the way I was raised, I really jive with calisthenics. But the calisthenics, I would say, in hybrid calisthenics, does not refer to necessarily push-ups, pull-ups, things like that. Again, I said at the very beginning, I say calisthenics because I wanted to, the reason I don't call it Hampton, it is just because calisthenics implies to me that we have the strength within ourselves to better ourselves. We don't need to let anyone sell us our own health, happiness, and fitness. We have the power to move forward ourselves. That's why calisthenics. And with that in mind, I don't push everyone to do calisthenics. Not everyone's going to like push-ups, ever. Some people, they're going to hate them. Okay, if what gets you going is having your Wii going and playing tennis, power to you, my friend. Okay, if what you like is yoga, I consider that calisthenics. I can consider Tai Chi calisthenics. I'm very much into Tai Chi. These are all things. That is why I promote calisthenics. And if you look at my content, a lot of it isn't strictly calisthenics. It's about improving yourself and having fun with your life and having fun with your fitness. That's why.
Excellent. Well, listen, man, I'm sorry to hear about your mother, but I am sure wherever she is, if she's looking down, she is proud of what you are doing, what you've become, and I'm going to ignore that.
Okay, no worries.
I'm going to give you a second here to tell us where people can find you. I'm going to run to go answer the door. I'll be right back, sure. But please, you got 2 minutes. Tell people where they can find you.
Okay. I can actually, this is the rare case where I can actually answer something faster than the time limit. You can find me as Hybrid Calisthenics. You can spell it here. I should have found a brand name that was easier to spell. Hybrid Calisthenics anywhere on social media. If you just Google Hybrid Calisthenics TikTok, Hybrid Calisthenics Facebook, Hybrid Calisthenics Instagram, I should pop up. My biggest platforms right now is in my TikTok because there's more organic reach. I'm also on YouTube, that's growing, and Instagram are probably the biggest ones right now. But before you do any of that, instead of following me, because I say this, I don't have enough followers. I'm trying to serve every single one of them. It's okay. If it's a choice between following me and starting on your fitness routine today, just starting to move, just going for a walk, absolutely 100% do that. Okay, you don't need it's okay. If you have a choice between following me and working on yourself today, getting started, please do that. I have a free routine. You can check it out. There's no upsell or anything. hybridcalisthenics.com/routine. It's scalable to any fitness level, and I'm always working on it. It's always working on it. Start with that. If you don't like it, work on something else. Take what you need and use it. Have fun. Cultivate long-term fitness, my friends.
Giddy up. Hampton, I've really enjoyed this interview a lot. And
Thank you.
I have fun interviewing people, but I've enjoyed this one a lot. And you strike me as a good human being, right?
Thank you so much.
And there are lots of people who are smart. There's lots of people who have lots to offer the world, but not everybody's a good human being. And you, Hampton, young man, you are a good human being. And
thank you
that,
so much, sir.
I just want to commend you. So we're going to sign off. Hank, please stay on Zoom after. I'll talk to you shortly there.
Sure.
But for everybody who came out to be a part of this conversation, to listen in, thank you very much for being a part of this. I want to thank HAMPTON LIU for taking the time to educate us and to share some of his insight and experience with us. This has been very educational, and I know that there will be lots that I can take from this to put out on social media. You can check this out on my YouTube channel, Dr. Chris Podcast. It'll go up there, and you'll also be able to find it on my IGTV and on Spotify. So with that, we'll sign off. As always, that's been a word from Dr. Chris, not your everyday ortho, and HAMPTON LIU, Hybrid Calisthenics. Thank you very much. Ciao, everybody.
See you, everyone. Bye.